Greetings, I am John the Verbose, and this is my YTpaganChallenge video for week 50 on greatest advice to new Druids. Now, for a very important disclaimer, I do not speak on behalf of all Druids, nor do I speak on behalf of all Reformed Druids. My views and opinions I express are my own. Now, the one question that I'm confronted with most often is, how do I become a Druid? To sum it up all in one word, my greatest advice is to explore. And by that, I do mean getting out into nature. Stop and feel the transition of time. Discover the seasons. Discover what excites your spirit. Druidry will always be hard to define since it is different for each individual. Never stop learning. Learn about what the ancient Greeks and Romans said about the Druids. The only thing we really know for certain is that they were the intellectual elite and philosophers. Second, study. It is important to know that modern or Neo-Druidry is vastly different from ancient Druidry, and ancient Druids might not recognize us if they are still around today. There are a dozen or so different Neo-Druidic organizations out there today, and each one is unique in custom and practice. Part of the greatest journey of self-discovery for me as a Druid was when I learned the different types of Druidry. Even by studying different Druid orders to compare and contrast them. Of course, you don't have to join any orders. There are many Druids that choose to go solo, and they blend together aspects that work for them. Some modern Neo-Druids blend cultures like Celtic and Norse, or even Greek, for example, and I have to say that's okay. Even the ancient Celts blended in Roman traditions and religious customs, and those were historically referred to as Romano-Celtic. It is even okay to blend heathenism with Druidry since there are some similarities, though historically there was a 200-year gap between the last Druids and the first Vikings. Nevertheless, there had been pre-Viking contact and trade between the cultures for thousands of years. Personally, I don't particularly care for the blending traditions into Druidry, but in our contemporary society, Neo-Druidry is no longer bound to any one cultural group or ethnicity. It is essentially a placeholder word for this type of spiritual practice. Read the top-rated books on Druidry. Explore and compare other world religions. Develop your own rituals or borrow from others. Try developing a bardic skill. Whether poetry, music, artistry, crafts. Learn or try different types of divination. Look for omens in the behavior of wildlife and forces of nature. Practice following your intuition. Take everything as a sacred learning experience. If you join a local group, be careful of leaders who try to control their followers or restrict their spiritual growth. Importantly, try to avoid infighting or witch wars. Druidry is not a competition. To resolve issues, try to see things from others' perspectives. Use reason so that they might understand your perspectives. If you must criticize something, try to make it constructive criticism so that it helps others understand without getting upset. Last of all, Druidry is a practice, and all Neo-Druids are continuously learning, continuously practicing. If life gets too hectic, try to find 2 minutes to practice Druidry, even if it's just feeling the wind in contemplation. Ancient historians may have indicated that it took up to 19 years for a Druid to complete their studies. In contemporary times, that may no longer be necessary. If we think back to the Iron Age, the time of the Druids, knowledge essentially had to be memorized by repetition. These days, with literacy and other educational tools, we can learn so much more in a few years than it would take if we had to memorize everything in 20. Still, there is something to be said about the philosophy of writing down words purges them of their magic, but I digress. I have so much more to share, but right now, these are the tidbits of information that I feel are critical to beginning your studies as a Druid. Thank you for watching my video, and we will see you next week.